videos, and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at flacarshows.com.
You may be owed some money. After 911 and 411, call 541. That's 727-541-1741. Call Gulfstream Motorsports for a diminished value report. Due to my 28 years experience in the auto salvage business, I'm very good with wrecks. So if your car's been involved in a wreck, call me for a diminished value report. Call 727-541-1741. You may be owed some money for the lost value of your repaired vehicle. And visit us at GulfstreamMotorsports.com.
Suddenly, it's 11 o'clock, Labor Day. 41 drivers have their work cut out for them. Fireball Roberts, fastest qualifier, starts ninth. He's raced in all 14 Southern 500s. Jim Pascal is another 14-year veteran. He's raced 5,000 miles on this track. But waiting is harder than racing. Buck Baker, the old pro, is the only other veteran of 14 Southern 500s. Tiny Lund, a 260-pound leadfoot, waits. Nelson Stacy drove a tank in combat. Nothing rattles him. Joe Weatherly, national champion. He's won more races than you can count. Junior Johnson. He drives with a simple strategy, flat out, as far and as fast as she'll go. Fred Lorenzen. He wants to be the first driver to win $100,000 in 1 year. The pace car leads the way on a warm-up lap. The fastest field in Darlington history moves out to test the track and be tested. There are 7 makes of cars running here: Ford, Chevrolet, Mercury, Plymouth, Dodge, and Chrysler. Ford with 17 is the most popular entry. The next time they head into the first turn, they'll be flat out inches apart. One mistake by anybody, and there could be a lot of bent metal on this track. Drowned out by the cheering of some 80,000 fans, the largest crowd ever gathered at this famous 1 3/8 track. This track is a terror for mechanics. High-banked first and second turns, a fast backstretch, then turns 3 and 4 that are almost flat. The fastest way through these turns is high up, inches away from the fence. At high speeds, many cars will actually scrape the steel barrier. They're racing. Fred Lorenzen jumps to the lead. Junior Johnson rides his fender as they roar into the first turn. Safely through turn 1, strung out now in the fast groove high on the track. Lorenzen holds the lead as they hit the backstretch. Lorenzen's Ford sets a record-shattering pace for lap 1, but Johnson isn't impressed. He swings wide coming off the 4th turn. Johnson Chevrolet leads. Lorenzen's first lap was more than 130 miles an hour, but here come the challengers. Marvin Patches, Ford number 21, traveling at fantastic speed, takes 3rd place. Hanging back in 8th position, Fireball Roberts, number 22. Ed Livingston bashes the fence and slides across the track, out of the way of faster cars. There's no danger and no caution flag. The race goes on at record speed. Patch takes 2nd place, catching Fred Lorenzen, then sets his sight on the front runner, Junior Johnson. At the end of 25 miles, Patch is 5 miles an hour faster than last year's record, but he's still 2nd. While the fans are glued to the tremendous battle for first place, Fireball Roberts has slowly moved through the field and is now running 4th. He's turning laps in 37 seconds flat, 133.5 miles an hour. Faster than the track record. Patch is racing down to the checkered flag. As long as there's no traffic, he's all right. But he can't hold power into the turns to pass other cars. Glenn Wood, his mechanic, watches helplessly. Lorenzen keeps the pressure on Roberts, although a lap behind with time running out. Roberts, his tires threadbare and his fuel almost gone, moves out of the way as Lorenzen gets back in the same lap. There's the white flag. 1 lap to go. Roberts rounds the track for the last time as the crowd comes to its feet, watching racing history as it is made. There's the checkered flag. Fireball Roberts, driving Ford number 22, wins the 14th Southern 500 in record time. 500 miles in 3 hours, 51 minutes. It will take another 500-mile race without a caution flag to top this amazing speed. Marvin Patch finishes second, a brave and brilliant race behind him. It just wasn't our day, he said. With a little luck, we could have won. Roberts rolls his Ford to the winner's circle.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Button up my sleeve. Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Hi, everybody. This is David Hobbs, racing driver and speed commentator, and you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Okay, listeners, welcome. You're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and I'm your show host, Robert. Run your computers and Google Talk1340.com, and you can see us live here in the studios in downtown Clearwater. Don't forget to check out our website, GulfstreamMotorsports.com, where you can find out all about us. And if you missed any of our past shows, 600 and some odd shows, don't forget to check out Nostalgic Radio and Cars, our website and archive page. Good evening, Bobby. How are you?
I'm doing well on this Tuesday evening. How about you?
Feels good to be sitting back in the studio here.
Oh, yeah, you sound a little closer.
I sound closer, yeah.
Or something like...
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Very, very, very good. I forgot my clips. I had some clips cut out for today, and I blew out of the office without sending
hair clips or clips?
Clippers. Yeah, radio show clipper thing. Okay, so I took a little excursion last week. I was invited to go visit some friends up in North Georgia, South. What was that other?
But not in the excursion.
No, South Carolina and Tennessee area.
Yes.
So I did. And we got a few minutes here. We'll talk before we get our guests on the show.
Smoky Mountains.
The Smoky Mountains. I went there with and met a bunch of friends from Grassroots Motorsports, a.k.a. Classic Motorsports. And we kind of hung out up there, and we did a little driving. Now, we did do the Tail of the Dragon. I will tell you about the Tail of the Dragon. Leading up to the Tail of the Dragon. Now, mind you, there was 20 or 30 crazy car guys. 15 of us had Porsches. The other 15 had a mix of BMWs, Benzes. We had an Aston Martin. And my friend Greg brought a 1925 Bentley, which to me, that was probably the most thrilling event for the whole couple of days we were up there tooling around, because he had to work that car. You talk about shit. It's a 4-speed transmission or 3, whatever it was. And, it's got a clutch, obviously, but there are no synchronizers in that transmission. And he had to really work that thing, just time it just right, get those gears where they needed to be. Now, mind you, the Smoky Mountain area, we've been up there many times, right, Bobby? When you were younger, we used to go up to Hiawassee and Dahlonega and areas like that, and Young Harris. And there's a couple, I can't remember.
Lake Lanier and Brazelton.
Yeah, all that. Anyway, an awesome Bill from Dawsonville, Georgia. And the roads are absolutely amazing. But what was probably more amazing, the fact that I haven't taken my life in my hands like that since, I don't know, can't remember when. So we were driving, we got up in groups, and it was kind of like, hey, well, the faster guys, let's kind of like do our own little thing. Well, that kind of through attrition, we just kind of like found out who the faster guys were. Of course, not to be outdone. It's a competitive thing, guy thing, Once you've been on a racetrack, you are a race car guy, and you just tend to instincts take over and you haul butt. So the roads up there were absolutely amazing. We were driving like we were on a racetrack, and we were having a blast. I mean, we were passing on turns, just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But the roads leading up to the Tail of the Dragon were actually more fun than the actual Tail of the Dragon. The problem with the Tail of the Dragon is you got a lot of bikers, you got a lot of sightseers, tourist people. In fact, that whole area, there's areas there that you can drive. They got to, you can get this map, and it tells you these are the roads to drive. So what you have to watch out for is the other people driving like you are driving. And you do not know who's coming around the turn. I always manage to stay fast enough in the back where I could see the guy's left rear quarter or right rear quarter as he's going around the turn, because if there was a sudden stop, I wanted to make sure I had room. But the problem is on Tail of the Dragon, as an example, there are no guardrails. And it pretty much goes straight down. So if you go off, you go off. There's a lot of little crosses with little flowers all along the way to dot that whole 11-mile little stretch from Robbinsville, basically, which is where it starts in I think that's North Carolina, and ends in Tennessee or something like that. But it was a lot of fun. And would I do it again? Absolutely, positively. And but we were doing some pretty serious driving. But the other thing we did, we actually got a chance to go over to the Atlanta Motorsports Park, and we got to drive. We were doing touring driving, laps, just, casual laps. But I always managed to stay in the back. The reason I stay in the back of the pack is I either stay up front, right on the fastest guy's bumper, so I can push him, or get pushed, or get left behind, because a lot of the cars were faster than the one I was driving. But, when you can handle, you can handle. I mean, I was upshifting, downshifting, clutching, heel towing, the whole 9 yards. Everything you learn in racing school, or you see on TV, all that kind of stuff. Believe me, we're doing it. And but on the track it was kind of cool, because I hung back and I was, just kind of working on my turns, getting it down. And I hadn't driven fast in a long time, and it was a lot of fun. So I highly encourage that. But you know what it reminded me of? What's the Motorsport Park, Brady? The go-kart track up there in Inverness, or just south of Inverness there.
The Bushnell Motorsport.
Yeah, you know what? If you want to drive fast and have some fun and enjoy your teeth on the alligator strips, go to the Bushnell Motorsports Park, because at least you're in a go-kart, you're on a track, you're in a controlled environment, and you can get stupid. Well, kind of stupid. You don't want to hit somebody, you don't want to do anything, because if you do get kind of stupid and crazy, they kick you off the track. But it's still a lot of fun. It's a place to go up there and kind of hone your skills. And you're really racing against the clock. That's it's a lot of fun, and I highly encourage that. In fact, we're going to go there probably within the next couple of weeks or something like that. We're going to diddy bop on over there. We might even have Brett and his wife on the show to talk a little bit about the Bushnell Motorsports
So if
Park.
you're listening to us up there in Zephyrhills, just point your car north on 301 and give yourself 30 minutes and 45 minutes, and you'll be there.
Yeah, and it's on 48. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I-75, 48, whatever that exit is. And
the Bushnell exit.
The Bushnell exit. Isn't there a barbecue place up there?
There's Love's with an Arby's in it.
Is that what it is? Okay.
And there is a barbecue place.
There's a barbecue
There's
place.
an arcade.
It's all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so that was that. So Tail of the Dragon, if you've never done it, you need to do it once. Actually, I did not go fast on the Tail of the Dragon. I just let everybody kind of cruise, because there's motorcycles. Although there's a couple of guys on bikes that were kind of trying to bump on my bumper guards there a little bit, so I gave them a little taste of what Porsches do. And they kind of hung in there pretty good. And then what I did is I pulled over, because there's pullovers. And if you're a courteous driver, you pull over and let the fastest guys go by, which is what I did. But I just basically just enjoyed it, because the trees, the roads, the quiet, the peacefulness. I mean, it was really, really, really nice. I pulled over for about 5 minutes, and I heard absolutely nothing but birds chirping, Mother Nature doing her thing, which was a lot of fun. So I look forward to doing it again sometime. Anyway, our friends at Fastlane Travel will be putting together some tours. So be sure and check out our website. And with Fastlane Travel, they will be doing some tours and driving tours across the country. So we will keep you informed as to how those progress. And what I forgot to do, Bobby? I forgot to pick a song. Why don't we?
I was just looking at that.
How about we do something from the Kinks? I don't know why the Kinks. I was listening to the Kinks.
Yeah, we do have to do that.
Well, everybody does Lola, so let's not do Lola. We could do.
Well. Okay.
Oh yeah,
not to.
All right, let's do Lola.
I mean, she actually not in love with the song, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I guess. But
but this is the Lola by the Kinks, not Lola by who was the other guy, Barry Manilow or something like that, or I don't know.
Oh yes.
Somebody else did one.
Yes, it was.
But that was the Lola from the Mediterranean bar.
Right.
Mediterranean? No, not Mediterranean. South Caribbean.
Disco.
Yeah, well, we're not doing that because we're not into disco. Well, yeah.
Yes,
kind of. Well,
yeah,
we play
plenty of disco.
Have we played disco on the show before? Oh my! Hey, you're tuning into Nostalgic Getting Cars. We're gonna play some Lola, I guess. You're tuning into Nostalgic Getting Cars. Here's the Kinks, and we'll be right back with our special guest for the evening. And don't touch that dial, because we will be right back, because this gentleman was on last week, and we're going to do part 2 with Mike Hall from Ship Ganassi Racing. Hey, see you in a few.
I asked her her name, and in a dark brown voice she said hello. Hello, hello. La 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 la. I'm not the one who's spine on the Lord. La 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 la. Well, I'm not dumb, but I can't understand why she walk like a woman and talk like a man on the Lord. La 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 la. La 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 la. Well, we drank champagne and danced all night under electric candlelight. She picked me up and set me on her knee. Said, "Little boy, won't you come on in?" Well, I'm not the one for the passionate guy, but when I looked in her eyes, well, I almost fell for my Lord. La 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 la.
Okay, we're back, and you're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and I'm delighted to welcome back to our show this evening for part 2, the managing director of Chip Ganassi Racing, Mike Hall. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, now let's see. You, we kind of we had some technical difficulties last week, so let's pick up where we left off. You were actually talking about your Shelbys, and you sold them. Now, I just want to throw this out at you. Since you're up there in Indy, SAC, which is Shelby Automobile American Car Club, which is our Shelby group, 47 takes place in Indy next weekend, the weekend of the 16th. So if you are bored slap out of your mind, you got nothing else to do, besides play with a couple of race cars, you might want to roam over there and just kind of, fraternize with the Shelby guys, and you never know. You might say, you know what, I really think I need another Shelby. What do you say to that?
Well, that's really terrific. I wish I was going to be in Indy, but I'm not going to be. It seems like my calendar and anything that sounds like fun don't seem to cross over well. But motor racing's fun, so that's the main thing.
That's the main thing. And you guys are really, really good at it. So, and again, congratulations on your Indy 500 win. Let's talk a little bit about you and how you got started into racing. We really didn't go into that, but growing up you're from basically the LA area, right? And that was kind of like the hub of hot rodding, race cars, street racing, all the fun stuff. So how did you become addicted to the hobby, to the car world, so to speak?
Like a lot of Southern California people did from my generation. It was pretty hard not to fall into racing, unless you just didn't like cars. And I think a lot of Southern California people really do still enjoy classic street cars, hot rods, and all of that. Southern California started out probably, I guess, with lake bed racing first, and then it kind of transferred itself into a lot of things that we saw happen in the 60s. A lot of the industry in Southern California, the aerospace industry, had a lot of technicians and fabricators and people that worked with their hands that transferred themselves into the automobile racing industry. People know about the famous people, and there were a lot of people that probably should have been famous that all merged and worked in the 60s. I'm a child of the 60s. I grew up in the 60s, and loved motor racing from the very beginning of my life.
Was there anybody in your family that was into cars, hot rodding, racing that had an influence on you?
No, my dad had friends that had a lot of exotic cars, and we went to the races. I went to the races as a kid, developed friendships with some of the people there, and as soon as I could start racing something myself, I did start. It progressed. Frankly, my mom and dad were disappointed because the first word that I said was car, not mom or dad. So that kind of set the tone right there.
And let me guess, your first Christmas toy was a car, right?
Well, yeah, I wish I could remember what it was. My memory's either gone now, vaporized, or I don't remember one or all of the above. But I had a lot of model cars when I was growing up, built a lot of model cars. And as soon as I could use my hands on cars, I did. And had friends like myself that we all had cars, and we had a great time doing that in Southern California.
When you were growing up, and obviously this is a question everybody gets asked, what was your first car?
My first car was a 55 Chevrolet.
Okay.
Street car, street racing car. Really, everybody drag raced in Southern California somewhere, either Van Nuys Boulevard, Pasadena Boulevard, or somewhere else, on Friday night or Saturday night, depending on which locale you wanted. By Bob's Big Boy, that was the big deal. That's where everybody met. And certainly developed some great friendships there. And I loved road racing growing up and went to a lot of road races. And so I met friends that were doing that. They were a half a generation or even a generation in front of me. And got to go to the racetrack with those people. And my first car was that. My second car actually was I was getting ready to go to college, and my dad said, that 55 Chevrolet is probably not going to work very well. I sold it to somebody that wanted to have it real badly. And he said, he had a friend, his name was John. He was an auto wholesaler in L.A. And he said, John's going to go get your car at the auto auction, so you'll have something to drive for 4 years. And so I figured they were going to come back with a Volkswagen Bug or something, something like that. And he said, we got a car. It's a German car. He said, it'll probably last you for 4 years. These guys come back from the auto auction with a 911S Porsche.
No way.
A 69 911S. 69 911S. And a European version, so it had all the European instrumentation inside, different engine, the upgraded suspension and brakes, and so on. And frankly, the only thing I did with it for 4 years while in school was I changed the oil in it, and that was it. And my dad was a little disappointed because when I got out of college, I wanted to go motor racing. I didn't want to continue on. He wanted me to be an attorney. Didn't want to do that. And so I sold the Porsche out of the LA Times and bought my first van, trailer, and Formula Ford so I could go racing with the proceeds. That's what I did. And shortly after that, I started racing, club racing in Southern California. And I was offered a job at the Jim Russell School at Willow Springs to be a driving instructor because I was doing pretty well. And the guy that was there was going to England to race over there, so it was perfect timing for me. So I worked there for 4 years at the very beginning of my working career, as well as racing on the weekends simultaneously. So that worked out really well.
Well, now that's interesting. I'm kind of partial to Porsches a little bit. So have you had other Porsches since then, by any chance?
No, I have not. I'd love to have one, but I just. You know what? It would probably sit in the garage most of the time, and it would seem like maybe it'd be a great investment at this point in anybody's life to have something that had some value like that. That seems to appreciate if you look after it. But I've driven some, but I don't presently own one.
Let me ask you this: so back then, okay, so when you graduated from college after the 4 years, what was your major then? Because obviously laws after that is another 3-4 years.
Yeah, no. I had a double major in college. I was a double major, political science and economics.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I use both of those today, right? But who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought?
That was because I was pre-law, right?
Gotcha.
Pre-law and just I don't know, guys like me from my generation, Vietnam was going on, and the idealistic people like myself that started in college when Vietnam really ramped up, we became very unidealistic, and we wanted to just get away from anything that represented the corporate world, or you name it, anything like that. Racing was a great avenue for me, so I just got after it after that, and just kept working at it. And, I'm where I am today because of it.
When you were younger then, so Riverside was a big track down there. I don't know if Torrey Pines was still around when you were growing up there in Southern Cal. And then did you ever come up to Laguna Seca, Sears Point, places like that? I mean, did you go to any of the road races back in? Oh,
absolutely. As a kid, we'd go to races. I I don't remember Torrey Pines. I don't remember going to Torrey Pines. Let's say that.
Okay.
It was no longer. It was. See, as I recall, Torrey Pines was part of a military base at the time, and that's where they were racing.
Right.
From what I've been told, and but by the time I was old enough to remember, it became a golf course. So that area there, anyway, and so I never went there. I did go to Santa Barbara road races a couple of times. As a kid, I went to Paramount Ranch, which was the backlot for Paramount Studios. They only raced there 1 year. Had at least club races there 1 year. Willow Springs, Laguna Seca, Phoenix. Those are the places we would go for races. Sonoma was opened in 1970. Formula 5000 race there. I did go to that race. He was a spectator. It was open for a couple of years, and then the guy that ran the place or owned the place went into receivership, and it slows down for quite a while. But then it's active now, certainly. And went to Riverside a lot. I raced a lot of races at Riverside. Won a few, actually. A couple of big ones for me, and some others too. Let's see, what other club racing tracks did I race up there? Holtville, which was an airport track near Central California, and then we would go east in the summertime and race in the Midwest.
When you were spectating the racing, I mean, you got into racing, so let's just say around 70, 71, 72. Before then, while Trans Am and Can-Am racing was still pretty big, did you get a chance to go to some of the Can-Am and Trans Am races back then?
Went to a lot of them on the West Coast, yes.
So I'm a huge Can-Am.
Some of those heroes race.
I'm a huge Can-Am and Trans Am only because Can-Am kind of like no rules, so to speak. And then Trans Am, obviously, because I could identify with a Mustang, a Camaro, an AMC, and so on. And so to me, that was still raw racing. You referenced last week, we were talking a little bit about IndyCar, NASCAR. They've basically turned into spec racing. In my opinion, spec racing are, okay, you got all this. It's just like in certain boat racing classes, everything's identical. So were you, and one of the questions was, how do you make your cars go faster? So you said we're talking about friction and aerodynamics. That's about the only two things you can do. Back then, I think a lot of development, a lot of experimentation, research, because the cars were basically rolling test beds. And I think those cars are really responsible where we're at today because they did all the dirty work. And now here we are today. And the only thing you can really do, if I understood you correctly from last week, was pretty much just refine what we have. Would that be a fair statement?
I think that's a good way to say it, yes. There's an awful lot of technology that goes on today in any form of spec racing that people don't really see, and people like ourselves don't really talk about it. But there's a ton of technology development going on today because of the finite nature of the separation point between the cars, which you have in common with the better cars, even in spec racing. And let's just say IndyCar spec racing.
Okay.
We all have the same race car. We either have a Chevrolet or a Honda. We're on the same tires. So, and compounding that or complicating that is the fact that they're very restricted these days on the testing rules. So the on-track testing rules. They're not restricting the off-track testing rules. So if you think about what this actually means, people think, oh, well, that means you use a wind tunnel and maybe you do a little CFD, whatever. Man, it's way, way deeper than that now with the better heeled teams in IndyCar racing. We have staffs of engineers that are doing nothing but devoting energy toward every aspect of the car away from the racetrack with every form of software development possible to understand how to separate yourself in a small way from your neighbor. And the second thing is the drivers. Even though the cars are the same, everybody says, oh, the cars go the same speed. There's still a significant difference between the ability of the race drivers. It's not seen well because the racing is so close. But you normally will see it in a motor race, an IndyCar race. Well, let's just say like we just raced in Detroit, the street race in Detroit this last weekend. the first 3 or 4 cars separated themselves by almost a whole lap by midway through the race. Now, the reason they did that was they had really good cars, but you had really good drivers in the cars. So you see that sometimes predominantly, let's say, more so at some races than others, but those are really the differences that you have. And then most of the teams now in IndyCar racing are multi-driver teams, multi-entry. And there's an enormous amount of share between the drivers and the engineers for the drivers by, on the race weekends, taking the data that you have, analyzing it for drive style, lateral acceleration, load, how the tire reacts, how it reacts to what the driver wants, and all of those things. So there's an awful lot going on that the average person probably will never be privy to see. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it, because you don't want to give it away. In the days that you're talking about, in the days of Can-Am, what made those cars so fast, besides raw horsepower, was the level of the teams. The better teams were so far advanced compared to the rest, number one. And number two, the tires changed every weekend. Every weekend there was a tire war going on between Firestone and Goodyear in the Can-Am series, and they were showing up with new tires, new compounds, new construction, stacks and stacks and stacks of every weekend, which created more speed every time. So they go to Riverside and they would run, and then the next weekend go to Las Vegas, Stardust, and then the next weekend they go to Laguna Seca. In the Midwest, they go to Mid-Ohio, Road America. And every weekend, those people would hustle up to build stacks and stacks of tires for the better runners. So the better guys had unlimited rubber. And that created a lot of speed that people just saw the track records being broken. Tires contributed greatly to that.
Today, like you mentioned, so that you all have to run in the same tire. So, and you mentioned friction. So I'm going to assume friction has to do with bearings. Aerodynamic is kind of friction related, okay? Oil in the engine, tolerances, all that stuff comes into play, correct?
That is right. Yep.
So what has been your experience? Let's talk a little bit, because I want to get into the e-gas and the gasoline, because you said next year you're going to be running some special gasolines. So let's talk a little bit about oils. The oils that you have available to you and the tolerances that are built in the engines, how significant is the oil itself? I mean, and what are some of the things that you look for in an oil? And the reason I ask that is because, you know, that oil debate comes up all the time, because there's a lot of us that say, well, you know, if you change your oil every 2,000-3,000 miles in your car, you're fine. But then again, you know, there's certain oils, they say, well, you run this oil, you get better gas mileage. And the reason you get better gas mileage is because it creates less friction, and less friction is less heat is performance.
Well, that's a good way of saying it. I don't know if I could say it any better than that. We rely, in our case, with our IndyCar program, we rely wholeheartedly upon what Honda does for us. Honda Performance builds our engines and looks after our engines and supports our engines with technicians at the racetrack, and they have a huge facility in California that build the engines for all the Honda teams that race. Chevrolet, the counterpart of Chevrolet, does exactly the same thing, and they're constantly developing their product. The engines themselves are homologated, but then they can revise the engine each year. There's a list of things that they can do. One thing is lubrication. How they lubricate the engine, the viscosity of the oil, what the weight of the oil is, and they're very, very cognizant of the fact that you don't want to carry around too much oil in your car, but in your race car, but you want the oil to, as we're talking about here, reduce friction, but at the same time, make sure the engine will last the appropriate amount of miles. We run in IndyCar racing today. We have a 4-engine limit before we're penalized for the season. Each engine is meant to go 2,500 miles of racing. So that's 10,000 miles of racing during the entire season for 4 engines. And if you think about the rev you turn, the power level, all the things, you would have never gotten away with that in the 60s and 70s in motor racing. You've been lucky to get by with a whole race weekend. So the viscosity thing is a big deal, but the research and development that goes on lubrication is huge.
Well, the reason I asked that is, for example, I know when we used to build motors, chromoly was a big thing back in the day. Okay, so and most of your engines, your race engines, are dry sump systems. Okay, so which means the oil's pumped in there. And you said we don't want to carry around a lot of oil. So where I'm going with this is that, okay, so if we run less oil, but we have these lubricants that basically the engines, obviously, spec engines are sealed. Most people don't know that, but they're sealed and you can't touch them. They basically give them to you, drop them in the hole, and that's it. I didn't even know whether you changed the oil or not in the cars, or you just have to kind of and you work on everything else. And the motor's just like a separate little thing. But nonetheless, so do you think it'll eventually get to the point where we're going to have a lubricant of some kind, and we won't even be running oil because the engine will just run on these, the parts will just kind of, work together in harmony with all these other components, and there won't be hardly any friction at all and won't be hardly anywhere. And it'll get to the point where that's it. We can't go any further. Is that ever a part of a discussion? In other words, you reach a point of diminishing returns, so to speak.
It hasn't been part of a discussion. But frankly, I mean, what we run today is not the way we run the engine today with what you're talking about with lubrication is nothing like we ran 5-6 years ago. So they continue to develop products to be almost friction proof with how the tolerances of the engine are built in relationship to the lubrication property that they have. So I suspect in 5 years it'll be totally different than it is today. I have no doubt. It used to be in IndyCar racing that the crew chief mechanic, not only built the car, but he also built the engines. So today that doesn't happen. The chief mechanic today is totally responsible for a race car, an IndyCar race car, but he's responsible for the completion of the car, all the components on the car, and that includes the engine installation. And if there's any problems with the engine at all, it just comes out and is given back in our case to Honda.
Okay, let's talk about this e-gas, this new gasoline. Tell us about the fuels that you're going to be running in the series next year. I think that's kind of you mentioned that there'll be a change in fuels.
I think it's terrific. It'll be a seamless change for us. It's already between Honda and Chevrolet on their engine dynos. They've run a lot of miles, thousands of miles already, and with transient dyno and regular dyno running. But the engine, the fuel that we're going to run next year is to be a byproduct of sugarcane, actually. So the waste material from sugarcane after it's harvested is going to be the base for the product that we're going to put in the fuel tank next year. There's no power loss. It's a biodegradable fuel. And IndyCar is making a statement by what they're doing. Shell is producing it. And we'll have it in the cars testing this winter when the race season is over. There is an engine testing program an engine testing program going on with Chevrolet and Honda for the 2024 IndyCar engine. That fuel will be used, I believe, starting with the next test they do in the end of June. But I know I can't speak for Chevrolet, but I know Honda has a lot of miles, thousands of miles on this engine on the fuel already. It's really a great thing if you think about it. It's not coming out of the ground. It's not taking petroleum product out of the ground, and it's actually doing the same thing that a petroleum-based product would do. So at the moment, you're not going to find it in a pump fuel station anywhere, but we get it in 55-gallon barrels.
So basically, just in simplified terms for my listeners, we're basically talking about a really sophisticated, advanced form of ethanol, correct? Would that be a fair statement? A really high potent ethanol fuel.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Ethanol is produced from is a corn byproduct.
Right.
So very, very similar, I suppose. Yeah.
So now
I think the difference, though, frankly, the difference is ethanol is really, really caustic.
Yes, and
frankly, and this is not by comparison. So if there was a difference between the two, all of the process is the same. I'd say that's the biggest difference between the fuels.
Now, does it have an octane rating?
It probably does, but I don't know what it is.
All right, so let me let's go back to the engines, whether it's a Ford or a Chevrolet or a Honda. These engines that you're running today, we all know that compression makes power. And then for the longest time in the 70s and 80s, we're down to 7 and 8 to 1, kind of like we were in the 30s and 40s and stuff like that. But they realized that, racing engines run 13, 14. I mean, I was running 13 to 1 motors back in the 70s when I was street racing. So, and some of those cars were running 17, 18, So your racing engines that you have today, you turn, close to 10,000 RPMs or more on some of those cars. And aren't you running like 13, 14 compression ratios?
Well, I'm not supposed to say what that is. I've signed in documents.
Oh, okay. Then that's okay. I won't put you on the spot. I won't put you on the spot.
You're pushing in the right direction.
Okay. So basically we know compression makes power. And that's, and they finally figured that out. But in order to have a successful engine to run on compression, you got to have octane. So I'm just going back to the basics, like when I was a little, street racer kid, and I'm thinking, okay. But so we're kind of like still taking, it's fair to say that we still take a lot of old school stuff and we take that knowledge and we refine it today, but the basics haven't changed. All we do is because of technology and computers and software and this and that, we can just make it state of the art. That's probably the best way to sum it up.
I think that's a good way to summarize that. Yeah.
Okay. What else can we look forward to in racing? In other words, as a race team manager, how far in advance, how many years in advance do you look forward when you're contemplating, okay, our future race team 2 years out, 4 years out, and so on? How many years in advance do you kind of look forward to things? And then are you able to, if you see something in the future, are you allowed to take some technology that let's say some future technology that you say, oh, hey, wow, can we apply that today? I mean, am I putting the cart before the horse here a little bit, or help me out?
Not really. I mean, I think race teams generally are, what they forecast is how far in front all of us represent a car manufacturing company in some way or other.
Okay.
If you have a full factory deal, that's one thing. If you have a semi-factory, you're supported by a factory. That's how you forecast where you're going. You either forecast it with the existing manufacturer, or you're working hard to find another one, one or the other. So in our case right now, we have long-term contracts with Honda. We have for IndyCar racing. We have a long-term contract with General Motors for a Cadillac project that'll become LMDH next year. And sports car racing globally, we'll run a team overseas as well as a team in the United States that we'll race global sports car races and converge on Le Mans in 24. That project goes several years past 24. So there's quite a bit of forecasting going on with that. And then we also race in the Extreme E. I think we talked a little bit about that last week.
Mm-hmm.
That's right now for us, that's a 5-year project. So we forecast way down the road with that. In terms of the advancement of technology there, as those 5 years, each year they allow you to do more and more things there. So we work pretty hard down the road to be ready well in advance of the rules that change.
How much influence do race teams have when the racing sanctioning bodies want to change rules? In other words, are you guys in a situation where you can put your foot down and say, no, we're not doing this? Or do you guys just say, let's debate the issue a little bit and let's kind of hash it out? Or do you just say, all right, whatever?
Well, if you want to equalize the competition, change the rules.
Yeah.
That's probably the the bottom line statement for what you've just said, the way you've asked your question. The sanctioning bodies, in our case, both in sports car racing and IndyCar racing, they will come and ask us questions.
Mm-hmm.
As a team, they'll want our opinion about what we think about various things, whether it be on course, off course, what goes on with the cars, lots of other things besides that. But they try to get a sounding board from the race team so they understand the direction and how it's going to affect. In these days, they're really interested in how it's going to affect the economy of our race team. In other words, they don't want to change the rules so quickly that they've created hardship on the teams. They'd rather have planned obsolescence with the parts on your race car. All the sanctioning bodies work really hard for that now these days, because with the way that we all race, where you're racing almost, continually till your season is over, you're way ahead on your product. So it's really not fair and the only way that you can race week in and week out is to be far ahead on the replacement parts that are already pre-built for your race cars. And so if they decide that they're going to outlaw something inside your transmission, or something in your suspension, or something that's significant in terms of the spend on the aerodynamic property of your car, they're going to delay that. They're either going to give you plenty of notice so that your parts are wiped out, or they're going to give you significant notice for the following year. And they do a good job of that.
Teams, how often do new teams get into the sport, so to speak? I mean, right now you've got, how many teams are there in IndyCar? There's something like 25 or 30, and there are different teams?
Right now. Yeah, the entries on the grid at most of the race we've done, with the exception of Indy, have been, I think we had 25 at Detroit.
Okay.
We've had 24 to 28 at every race we've been at this year. That's up about 4 from last year, really, on let's say, a seasonal basis. So more and more. And there's some great new young owners in the series. So it's moving along. There's a great renaissance going on in IndyCar with the increased ownership and entries.
Are they encouraging that? I mean, is the sanctioning bodies, do they encourage that? Do other team owners want that? Do you want more teams, more competition? More cars on the track, so to speak? I mean...
Yeah, I think you do. I think the vitality that IndyCar racing has and the closeness of racing is now contributed greatly by the increased number of cars that arrive for an event and race in the event. Yeah.
How about in the GT world, in the road racing world? Is the same theory hold true for them as well?
I think what's really happening is this global unification of sports car racing.
Okay.
They've finally gotten back together, the U.S. side, the North American side, and the sanctioning body that controls, the governing body that controls world sports car racing.
Mm-hmm.
They've set about to try to equalize the rules between the WEC Championship, the Asian Championship, and the American Championship. They want to have equal footing for all those championships so they can converge at any time and race with each other. That involves balance of what's called BOP, balance of performance. But the reality is what's happening now with this LMDH category is they're going to equalize prototype racing in some fashion as we go forward, beginning in 2023. All new cars. There's now a lot more engine manufacturers that are coming in now, car companies coming into the series as a result of this unification or standardization of what's going on with the performance of the cars. And I think, Le Mans 23 is going to be pretty exciting. A lot of the same cars that race at Le Mans will most likely race at Daytona this coming year at the beginning of the year. And many of them will be at Sebring. So endurance racing will be really ramping up. That part's really good. In terms of GT racing, what they've done is they've simplified the category of GT racing globally now. We had GTE in Europe, GTLM in America. That category is gone. They have now GTD, just one category for all GT cars, and they have an AM category and a professional category. But virtually the same cars, just with professional drivers in one area and a professional with an amateur in the other classification, the other part of that, the AM class. And there's an increase in manufacturer support because of all of that, because it's now the fields are deeper, heavier, and there's a lot more activity going on there.
Well, it sounds like racing's got a very, very bright future, and that's good because I'm all excited about that. But the sad news is we just crossed the checkered flag, the checkered line here, and we're out of time again, Mike. But again, I want to thank you very much for
great to you.
Share some stories with us. I wish you guys and the Canassie team all the best of luck. And I'll probably bump into you guys at probably one of the road races, Daytona, Sebring, something like that, because I usually go to those events. So in the meantime,
well, we're at Road America this weekend. That's a lineage place, so it's great to go there. We're there with IndyCars this weekend, so looking forward to going out to race this weekend.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Well, Mike, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you again. And I'm not sure where, but I'm sure it's going to be on a racetrack someplace nearby.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if you need a Porsche or a Shelby, look me up. I'll help you out.
Okay, thanks.
I want to thank my very special guest, Mike Hall. He is the managing director for Chip Ganassi Racing, and they're going to Road America this weekend, and they're racing Indy cars. But he'll be in Florida with at Daytona soon and at Sebring with their GT cars. And we look forward to seeing them down there, and maybe we'll hang out with them in the pits a little bit. So anyway, thank you very much, Mike. In the meantime, I want to thank all my listeners for tuning into Nostalgia Radio Cars. Don't forget, every Tuesday between 7 and 8 p.m. right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network, you can hear dialogue between me, moi, yours truly, kind of a racing guy, and some of the most fascinating and legendary names in motorsports. But music, we got some musical guests coming up here for you next couple of weeks. So don't forget to check out that. Follow us on Facebook, or what's our social media stuff, buddy?
Oh, and that Twitter thing, as they say.
Twitter thing, yeah.
YouTube, LinkedIn. You can find the show on YouTube right now, actually. And that's basically it. They're all Nostalgic Radio and Cars or Gulfstream Motorsports or NRC Live. So if you try one of those three, you'll get us.
That's right. And if you happen to get lost, you're somewhere up in the Smoky Mountains, don't forget to check out Tail of the Dragon.
FLAcarshows.com for car shows all over the great Sunshine State.
Yep. And the
Rib Shack, we'll figure out when you're going to open, and we'll let everybody know.
Absolutely. And don't forget, this weekend, if you don't have anything planned, or actually next weekend, up in Indy is also the 47th Shelby American Automobile Club. So those guys there, and then check out our good friends at HSR. They got some events coming up. It's all right here on Nostalgic Radio and Cars. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, drive carefully, and love your family.
On the trainers, eyes in line. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through. Oh, yeah! Rain to see, week to week, day to day, hour to hour, day straight, deep and wide. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through, bring on through, bring on through, bring on through. Hey, 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 hey.
WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyrhills.
FM 104.3.
Listen.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Jennifer Kuiper in Chicago. President Biden has met with actor and Uvalde native Matthew McConaughey, who made some comments in the White House briefing room almost 2 weeks after a deadly school shooting.
It seems that something is different. There's a sense that perhaps there's a viable path forward. Responsible parties in this debate seem to at least be committed to sitting down